A recent incident involving a Chinese man from Jiangsu province has caused an uproar after he attempted to bring a Chinese-made drone into the United States, resulting in his entire family's visas being revoked. On August 19th, the man, a native of Jiangsu, posted a series of updates on Chinese social media platforms, demanding compensation from DJI, the manufacturer of the drone, for his losses. In his posts, he explained that in late June, he had purchased the highest-spec DJI Mavic 4 Pro drone online, intending to bring it with him on a trip to the US. The sales representative from DJI assured him that it was permissible to bring the drone into the country, and even offered guidance on how to obtain a US drone license. However, on August 8th, when he and his family arrived in the US, the drone was seized by US Customs. Upon learning that his drone would be confiscated, he said he panicked and tried to retrieve his drone. As a result, his family's visas were revoked, and after being detained at the airport for several days, they were sent back to China. His post did not elaborate on exactly how he panicked and caused the visa revocation, but included various pieces of evidence to support his claims, including purchase records, documents showing the drone's seizure, and photographs of the visa revocation notice. The man also recounted his ordeal of being detained for 4 to 5 days at the airport, during which he and his family were physically and mentally exhausted. While stuck at the airport, he contacted DJI through friends, and the company initially agreed to compensate him for the cost of the drone. However, after his return to China, DJI reportedly denied any responsibility. He demanded a public apology and full compensation for his financial losses from DJI, threatening legal action if his demands were not met. The incident has sparked a flurry of debate on international social media. Some users argued, bringing a DJI drone into the US at this time was asking for trouble, as they're worried about espionage activities. Others pointed out, Customs didn't give you a hard time. You could have let the drone go and still entered, but you chose to argue with the officers. As early as 2018, the US military had banned the use of Chinese-made drones, and in recent years, the US government has increasingly viewed DJI drones as a national security threat. Both the Biden and Trump administrations have reportedly considered imposing a ban on the company. Some netizens commented, "This man doesn't seem like a real spy, or he wouldn't have publicly sought compensation from a company like DJI, which has military ties." But he didn't think it through when bringing the drone to the US, especially after asking DJI about potential risks, indicating he knew exactly what he was doing. They speculated that he could have been recruited as an unofficial spy, promised a reward if he managed to capture valuable footage. His mistake, they said, was not using a VPN to access accurate information from overseas. If he knew that China and the US are now in a new Cold War, with numerous Chinese nationals arrested in the US for espionage activities, including illegal drone use, he wouldn't have risked bringing his family into this mess, one comment read. Almost simultaneously, a separate case involving a Chinese national engaged in espionage in the US also stirred controversy within the Chinese community. On August 18th, the US Department of Justice announced that Sheng Huawen, an illegal immigrant from China, was sentenced to 8 years in prison for illegally exporting firearms, ammunition, and sensitive technology to North Korea. He had repeatedly smuggled these military supplies from China to North Korea, and his activities were uncovered through a multi-agency investigation. Wen, 42, had entered the US on a student visa in 2012 and overstayed after the visa expired. Before arriving in the US, he had met with North Korean officials in Beijing and was instructed to procure military supplies for the regime. He received approximately $2 million in US dollars as payment for his services. In 2022, 2 North Korean officials contacted Wen and instructed him to transport firearms and sensitive technology purchased in the US to China, from where it would be smuggled into North Korea. Following these instructions, Wen shipped at least 3 containers of weapons from the port of Long Beach in Southern California to China, ultimately delivering them to North Korea. To avoid detection, he hid the military equipment and technology in shipping containers, providing false export documentation. In May 2023, Wen purchased a firearms company in Houston for $150,000 and used it to acquire weapons, which he then transported to California for shipping. In September 2024, he planned to send 60,000 rounds of 9mm ammunition to North Korea, along with a civilian aircraft engine and thermal reconnaissance systems. North Korea has long been under U.S. sanctions, and acquired advanced technology or military supplies without approval is illegal. As an illegal immigrant, Wen was not authorized to possess firearms or ammunition. Some users speculated that Wen was already a professional spy for North Korea before arriving in the US, willing to risk his future for money. One comment noted, "It might not have been a bad thing for the man who was sent back with his family. If they had somehow made it through customs with the DJI drone, they could have faced even bigger problems." On May 14th, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, issued a final deportation order for Feng Yunshi, a Chinese national, after he was found using a drone to illegally film designated military facilities. ICE's Philadelphia office announced that Shi was a national security risk, underscoring its commitment to protecting the American public. ICE Enforcement and Removal Operations ERO Philadelphia, Acting Field Officer Director Brian McShane, stated in a press release that the removal of Feng Yunshi reflects ICE's steadfast dedication to protecting the American people and upholding national security. His unlawful actions posed a significant risk to sensitive military installations, and his removal ensures that he is no longer a threat to the nation. ICE will continue to enforce immigration laws with the highest priority placed on safeguarding the United States and its citizens. On August 11, 2021, U.S. Customs and Border Protection (CBP) approved Feng Yunshi's entry into the U.S. on an F-1 student visa at San Francisco International Airport, valid until he completed his graduate studies in agricultural engineering at the University of Minnesota. According to his LinkedIn profile, Shi graduated from Jilin University and had interned at the State Grid Corporation of China for nearly a year and a half. On January 6, 2024, while flying a drone over the Newport News shipbuilding site in Norfolk, Virginia, Shi was reported by local residents. The FBI launched an investigation and found photos and videos of his drone's SD card, allegedly capturing U.S. Navy ships and vessels intended for use by the U.S. Navy. On January 18, 2024, the FBI arrested Shi in San Francisco before he could board his one-way flight to China. Because Shi's criminal charges were still pending, the U.S. Department of State revoked his F-1 visa on January 25, 2024. On February 7th, the University of Minnesota terminated his student and exchange visitor program status. In June 2024, Shi was charged with 6 counts of violating the Espionage Act. In July, he pleaded guilty to 2 charges, one for filming military facilities in restricted defense airspace, and another for using an unregistered drone to photograph sensitive military sites. On October 2, 2024, the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia found Shi guilty, sentencing him to 6 months in prison. Under a World War II-era provision of the Espionage Act, he will be subject to 1 year of court-supervised release upon his release. Shi was held at the Federal Correctional Institution Allenwood in White Deer, Pennsylvania, until November 13, 2024, when ERO Philadelphia filed an immigration arrest warrant against him. On March 7, 2025, Shi was released from the Federal Correctional Facility, but ERO Philadelphia arrested him and detained him at the Clinton County Correctional Facility in Manhattan, Pennsylvania. On the same day, the office issued a notice to appear, citing potential deportation under Section 237 of the Immigration and Nationality Act. On March 24, 2025, an immigration judge in Elizabeth, New Jersey, ordered Shi's deportation back to China. In a separate incident, 2 Chinese high school students were arrested in South Korea for attempting to photograph military aircraft near the 10th Combat Aviation Brigade in Gyeonggi Province. One of the students claimed that his father worked for the Chinese police, raising suspicions about their identity. Authorities found that they had also filmed several military facilities and airports. The two students entered South Korea on March 18, 2024, carrying cameras with telescopic lenses and mobile phones. They visited US and Korean military facilities and major international airports, including the Air Force bases in Suwon, Osan, Pyeongtaek, and Cheongju, as well as Incheon, Gimpo, and Jeju airports. On March 21, 2024, they were arrested near the 10th Combat Aviation Brigade base in Suwon after photographing military aircraft. In their investigation, one of the students mentioned that his father worked for the Chinese police, prompting media outlets to question their true identity. One boy who claimed his father worked for the police had entered South Korea last year and earlier this year, staying about 4 to 5 days each time. The individual had entered South Korea in the second half of last year and stayed for 4 to 5 days as well, accompanying the first boy during that time. Their motivation for photographing military aircraft was reportedly their interest in planes, having taken over 100 photos of aircraft takeoffs and landings. The investigation revealed that the students had captured images of key military installations and airports. In June 2024, 2 Chinese men were arrested in Busan, South Korea, for using drones to illegally film the Busan Navy base. They also captured images of the U.S. aircraft carrier USS Theodore Roosevelt conducting joint exercises in Busan Harbor. The men, both Chinese overseas students in Busan, were charged under South Korea's Protection of Military Bases and Installations Act. This marked the first arrest of foreign nationals for such violations. Authorities revealed that they had filmed 172 photos and 22 videos over a period spanning from March 2023 to June 2024. Some of this content was reportedly shared on platforms like TikTok. The men used Chinese drones, which transmitted data to servers in China. In the past year, there have been multiple incidents in South Korea involving Chinese nationals using drones to capture images of sensitive military facilities or steal intelligence. These incidents have included the illegal filming of the USS Ronald Reagan at Busan Harbor in June 2023, and the use of drones to photograph the National Intelligence Service in November 2023. However, under South Korea's espionage laws, which apply only to enemy countries, that is, North Korea, these cases fall under violations of the Protection of Military Bases and Installations Act rather than espionage charges, which could result in life imprisonment or the death penalty. Violating the Protection of Military Bases and Installations Act carries a maximum sentence of 3 years in prison or a fine of up to 30 million Korean won, approximately $21,000. One online commenter noted, "For those who serve the Chinese and North Korean regimes as spies, the outcome is always grim. Unless you're like Meng Wanzhou, a part of the elite, informally known in China as the Princess of Huawei. The moment you fail, you'll be abandoned without mercy. Your family won't even get proper compensation." On July 3, 2024, the Italian government, at the request of the US, arrested Chinese hacker Xu Ziwei at Milan Airport. The US had issued a warrant for his arrest in November 2023, accusing him of working for a Chinese government-backed hacker group responsible for a series of cyber attacks targeting countries worldwide, including the US. Xu was arrested while traveling with his wife, although she was not detained. Many netizens questioned his reasons for traveling with his wife to Italy, wondering whether he was unaware of the US warrant or underestimated its seriousness. After returning to China, Xu's wife began posting on Chinese social media in August, calling for her husband's release, repeatedly chanting patriotic slogans and urging the authorities to intervene. However, the Chinese government has not acknowledged Xu's involvement in espionage or taken any steps to assist with his release. By August 13th, her account on Xiaohongshu, a Chinese social networking and e-commerce platform, was deleted, followed by the suspension of her account on Weibo, a Chinese microblogging website. On August 17th, several Chinese social media influencers began spreading rumors that Xu had been released, claiming that the US had lost again. These claims were inconsistent, with some saying Xu was released on the 15th, and others claiming that Italy had just decided to release him and his family. Xu's wife refuted these claims on her newly registered Weibo account, clarifying that her husband had not been released. One commenter said, "Xu's arrest is a huge blow to those still willing to serve the Chinese Communist Party. The CCP is afraid of spies defecting en masse overseas, but lacks the real resources to placate them, resorting to fake news to maintain morale." Another commenter noted, "The CCP has always been ruthless towards its spies. If they're caught, they're immediately abandoned, and even their families are left to suffer." As the US government recognizes the growing threat posed by the CCP, it has intensified its efforts not only against espionage, but also against ordinary criminal activities involving Chinese nationals. On August 18, 2024, the U.S. Attorney's Office Southern District of Florida announced the indictment of 2 Chinese nationals for their involvement in a gift card fraud scheme. If convicted, they could face up to 15 years in prison. The indictment revealed that 22-year-old Cao Yuan Liu and 26-year-old Ling Hanchen were charged with conspiracy and possession of at least 15 counterfeit or unauthorized access devices. They were accused of participating in a scheme to defraud customers by manipulating gift cards. According to court records, on December 16, 2024, they took gift cards from a local grocery store, scratched off or removed PIN codes and identifiers, then returned them. When customers purchased the cards, they were defrauded of funds. Law enforcement agents searched the defendants' residence and seized multiple gift cards, including additional cards found in their Bentley SUV. In late July, the U.S. Attorney's Office Northern District of Alabama charged 36-year-old Jia Dongcao and 48-year-old Xu Junzheng with possessing counterfeit and unauthorized access devices. Over 5,000 gift cards were found, many of which had their pins scratched off or altered. Some users commented, "Whether in China or the US, Chinese nationals need to wake up. If you're already in the US, you should cherish your hard-earned freedom and think of those suffering back in China. Don't risk your future for small gains serving the CCP, as it will end in tragedy for you and your family." Those still in China need to realize that traveling abroad is becoming more difficult, especially to the US. If you go with foolish intentions or take risks, not only will you jeopardize yourself, but you could also endanger your family, including young children. The Jiangsu man at the beginning of this story who was sent back to China might be lucky. If he had been caught trying to fly a drone in the US, think about how his family and children would have felt. The problem is, he still hasn't realized yet what kind of trouble his DJI drone has caused him. His troubles are far from over. They have only just begun.